and welcome back to Bless Your Heart. I'm Heather.
And I'm Carlyle. And last week we talked about orphan trains and how history sold it to us as philanthropy, but moving 250,000 plus children across country without their parents' knowledge into new homes with no recollection of their past does not sound like philanthropy to me. And the craziest part is it led us to the Vanderbilts because the Vanderbilts just so happened to double their railroad empire during that same time period. So we know the orphans went by train, so probably went by the Vanderbilt's train. So I would say a bit of their fortune was made off of their backs.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Carl. And it's interesting because it works out perfectly with what we're talking about tonight. So the trail leads us tonight to the World Fairs, which Carlisle and I are super excited to talk about because so many things link to the World Fairs that we had no idea. These magnificent cities of the future only lasted for 6 months and then were completely destroyed. So some of these buildings today still last, but for the most part, they are gone. You may see a few things that are still showing today, but for the most part, a lot of these World Fairs were completely demolished, Carlisle.
I know, and that's crazy. So, with that being said, let's jump right into our bless your heart moment of the week. And my moment is going straight to the Vanderbilts because I have been going to Biltmore House my whole life, sometimes like 3 or 4 times a year, depending on what kind of mood my mother was in or what kind of mood I'm in. So I have been probably more than the tour guides to the Biltmore, but I never looked at it in a weird light. Like I always looked at it at like in awe, and I still do because it's so magnificent. But I never questioned the backstory, and so like as of this year, something has just like led me to look into them, and it's like all roads lead to the Vanderbilts,
Excellent.
especially in that time period. So things are connecting and things are unraveling.
Definitely pretty interesting. My bless your heart of the week would have to be poor Jamaica and the Hurricane Melissa that hit it. Jamaica is it touches my heart so much, especially my husband's. He's been there like 20 different times throughout his life. But I will say, the Jamaican people are the most beautiful, kindest people. And I feel like our government has given them the worst. They make us Americans think that going to Jamaica, you're not going to be safe. It's not a safe place to travel. So I've noticed over the years that they've always put these bans like category 3 ban, or, they'll put some kind of travel ban on Jamaica. And it's all BS, in my opinion. I've been, my husband's been, his family's been, and they are the kindest people. And some things I wanted to highlight about what's going on in Jamaica right now. So Melissa was a Cat 5, but this Cat 5, it was a tropical storm. And then all of a sudden in 18 hours, it's a category 4. And then another 24 hours goes by and the airport closes down. So there wasn't that much time for people to get out. Granted, I know the people in Jamaica, they're like us, Charlestonians. Like, we're going to stay to a certain point, right? Because we've been through so many. But it was kind of shady, in my opinion, how it did close and how they were told last minute. It was a category 5. They really didn't give them that much time. But I also wanted to highlight some things I saw. I saw people that were staying at these, and I don't really stay at these big places like Sandals and all this, but the guests were out there cleaning up debris along the staff. And I love
Aw.
seeing that. I thought that was very humbling. And I always, during a storm, people come together and the positiveness comes out, But I mean, honestly, they had nowhere else to go. They couldn't get out anyway. So what are you going to do? I mean, it's not like you can go to the restaurant down the street because it's closed, but it was very
Correct.
sweet to
And
see.
in times like that, you have to decide if you're going to be a burden or if you're going to be a helper. And I would like to always choose that I'm going to be a helper.
Exactly. And then you also see people camping out at the airport. So the airport just opened up like yesterday. So a lot of the flights coming in to take people back home to their states. But one thing I also wanted to show is that the Red Cross, the government, United Way, a lot of these big corporations are going to start coming in and wanting to buy up land. I am already seeing, and you know just as well as I do, that the government's going to come in once it's kind of calmed down and they're going to try and buy the land from these people because they're, you know, you see it online right now. You've got a line to the gas station, you've got a car line as well as a human line of people on foot just trying to get gasoline because you've got all the generators, but you also have all the chainsaws and stuff because there were so many trees blocking all the roads. You have to be careful with these people coming in like Helene, where they will come in and they will try to buy your land behind you, right? They will try to take your land because you're not going to have food, you're not going to have water. Just it's going to be tough for the next couple weeks. And they're going to come in and they're going to offer to buy your land. And there's already people online saying, don't do it, don't fall for it. But there's also going to be people like the Red Cross coming in. And I know we've talked about the Red Cross before, but I wanted to at least shine this light really fast on this. The Red Cross is also on the Q post for anybody that ever followed the Q post back in like 2017 when they first started. Red Cross made the Q post. Trump also just recently met with South Korea's prime minister and put on his Twitter account piggy bank. Well, if you search piggy bank, it takes you on the Q post back to South Korea, back where the also link of the post also talks about Red Cross. So the Red Cross is used as a piggy bank to help support the crimes against humanity. And we do not know that. We do not realize that because they're one of the first people that come and help us, just like FEMA. And we have been told for years that these people are here to help us. We are finding out that the money that they are giving does not necessarily go to the people on the ground, the people that really need it. This is just my opinion of all this, right? Like, I really have seen things, I've seen posts, and it's just something everybody, I think, needs to be aware of. Like, for example, back in 2023, the Red Cross said that they spent $3 billion selling blood, our blood that we donated. But they're saying their operating costs are $2 billion for vans, for things like that. I mean, that's a lot of money. So it just makes you question. It's interesting that it made the Q post. It's interesting that the president brought it up. So it's just something I think that people should research. And that's all I just wanted to shine the light on. I think everybody.
It's all just this is all just our opinions and like, but it's things that we've seen. It's like I saw things during Hurricane Helene every week driving up, like the water
Right.
trucks all being at the gas station, the like, big guns coming in after all of the small people had done all the work for free, and then they get all of the pay. And like it's kind of quite concerning, the business of natural disasters. And then when you start seeing all of these smart city plans pop up, just so happens there's New Kingston Smart City Plan 2030. You can Google it. But you could go look up Valparaiso in Chile, which had a fire. They have a smart city plan. Acapulco, which had some crazy cyclone that came up overnight, that no one was prepared for. Like the 60th floor hotel windows were blowing out and guests were in the bathroom with like their mattress. I bet no one heard about that. They also have a smart city plan. Lahaina, Asheville, LA, Paradise Valley, California. The list goes on and on and on about these smart cities. So it's like the patterns are forming. And like when you think about smart cities, let's talk about the World's Fair because they are the OGs of the smart cities, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I just got back from Biltmore, and the crazy parallels between Biltmore and World's Fair is wild. Like, while Richard Morris Hunt and Frederick Law Olmsted, the architect and the landscape architect, while they were designing pieces of the World's Fair, they were simultaneously building the Biltmore House. So the Biltmore House was getting all of this technology from the World's Fair. So in essence, even though they've erased the history of what happened at the World's Fair, Biltmore's kind of like a little small living example of like the white city vision because that's how they were going side by side. tech with innovation plus classical beauty. It's like genius.
And what's interesting when they call it the White City, right? So there's
Mhm.
all these pictures of what they call them building these buildings. I think now that they were actually spray painting or painting these buildings white. And that's, why they built what made us think that they were actually building, but they were just painting it white to make it look, so you couldn't tell if it was old or not, is what I think.
Yeah, and then like they built this like crazy town with all this like electricity and no power lines and like a gleaming city. And then you look at Biltmore as like this gleaming, magnificent thing, and like all of the technology, like how they had steam power before, like most people had it. They had indoor plumbing. It's like pretty wild. But the players that were involved are like the major players of that era. It's like, why did it George Vanderbilt choose to use Tesla's power when he used Edison's power? Well, that's because Edison was backed by like JP Morgan and those guys. So it's like the rivalry going on at the time was wild, which brings us to like speaking of Tesla, like I always wondered why Biltmore didn't use Tesla's energy, but apparently it was like right on the cusp of the same time. So that like leads to the Buffalo World Fair, which I think you researched a lot of.
Yeah, so the Buffalo Welfare was technically Tesla's fair, is what they're calling it, where he technically moved electricity from Niagara Falls to the Buffalo Fair. But yet nobody knows how he did it. And there was also this goddess of light statue. So did they power their electricity through this goddess of light statue? And that's what lit up the whole city? But yet we were told they were light bulbs? I mean, come on. That's a lot of light bulbs. I mean, it's almost insane. But you just keep going. You just keep going down the list. And you also have Barcelona. Barcelona was the fastest built uh, fair in the history, and it was in 1888. It was built in 53 days. Give me a break. There's just no way. It would hold 2,000 guests, 600 rooms, 30 apartments. I mean, that's just insane. And
It's
then
wild.
it's crazy. And then Chicago seems to be the most well known. And I was researching a lot, and it seems that there's books still found of the Chicago Fair, and maybe that's why there's more videos of that, is because of this book. But there were so many fascinating things that happened at the Chicago Fair. They had this gigantic Ferris wheel. So the Ferris wheels that we see today, every fair has a Ferris wheel, but it's not that great, right? I mean, like one or two people can fit in a car. But this Ferris wheel was like an apartment size. It would fit tons of people in just one cart. Just one cart. So it would hold up to 3,000 people in this entire Ferris wheel, which makes you think, how on earth did they even power that up? Like, how are they able to get that many people and it to continue to go? They had to have free electricity. I mean, they just had to. And then you look at how big these fairs were. I mean, this is back in 1893. I mean, it's 700 acres, and they're saying it's built under 2 years. And it just makes no sense to me. And like you were saying earlier, there are no power lines found in any of these pictures. I mean, it could be whitewashed, the background, but from what it looks like the energy was free energy and it was powered through the water or something else other than what we were told it was powered through.
I know, which is like so crazy, which brings us back to Tesla, who was the man behind the power for like those world fairs. And it's like he actually had a lot of backing from JP Morgan. And then in like I think it was like 1901, I believe, he was like, no, JP Morgan, like it's gonna be free energy. We're gonna give people free energy and there's gonna be so much innovation because of it. And JP Morgan said, well, how do we charge for it? And Tesla was like, we don't charge for it. It's free. And he's like, no, 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 no. We need to have something that's like billable. So that is why they went with Thomas Edison, because all of his stuff ran off billable power station centers. So then, like, shortly after that, they pulled Tesla's funding. And then shortly after that, the FBI seized the tower where his Tesla's free energy was. And then Tesla basically became like, not like a vagrant, but he lived in hotels. He like became a recluse. He like really lost his mind. And when he died at the age of 86, the FBI like rushed on the scene. And somehow Donald Trump Jr.'s uncle is involved in all of this because like I think he got the paperwork somehow, but the FBI and Donnie Trump's uncle ran in there as soon as this man was dead to like see what he had to say. So that is just a wild connection in itself. But it like makes me think that these world fairs were just ways to kind of like see which inventors they could control and which inventors they could not. And then if they couldn't, they'd have to find a way to like wipe you off of the map. It's like, have you ever noticed all these simultaneous inventions that happen at the same time? You got Tesla and versus Edison with electricity. You got Darwin versus Wallace with evolution. You got Bell versus Gray with the telephone. I mean, those two, they filed the patent for the telephone on the exact same day. So it's like, how do these people have these ideas that revolutionize the world? Like they just come to them, but it doesn't just come to them. It
And
comes
could
to
it be
many, it
like
seems.
could it be like aliens downloading? Because I have heard this that like the aliens want to help us and they will like send messages down and certain people will receive it, but only certain ones out of that will actually make an action happen and actually do something with it. So you wonder.
I don't know. It's like it's so crazy. So the aliens are sending down this intelligence, they're downloading it, a couple of people are acting on it, but then it's like so then the people in charge have to know that this is happening and they have to figure out how do we get all these brilliant minds that are getting these downloads in one place so that we can control the narrative because the World's Fair was like controlling the narrative of what a wonderful empire we were, right?
Yeah.
Like how we were the most powerful. Everybody else that we showed off, all the other exhibits were like primitive to show like the primitive people. They had indigenous primitive zoos. So they would call like these displays zoos to just go ahead and downgrade them another level of humans. So I think it was to figure out which inventors they could control and couldn't control. I don't know where all of the architecture came from, but if it was found, it's pretty genius. They're like, hey, we're going to say this is our magnificent buildings that we built. We're
Mhm.
going to bring all these people in and we're going to have the inventors all showcase the best that they got. And then we're going to decide who moves forward in the world.
Yeah, and re-educate everybody along the way. I mean, it
It's
just
like
gets
it's
weird.
the first government psyop.
Yeah, and it just gets weird, Carlisle. I mean, some of the things I saw at these world fairs, I mean, you've got moving sidewalks. In 1800, you've got moving sidewalks. Come on now. Can you imagine back then showing up to a world fair and there's a moving sidewalk so that you can see the entire world fair? So that was Paris, and that was 1889. 1889. That's also where the Eiffel Tower came from, come to find out. So either they couldn't tear it down, they couldn't destroy it, or either that was the one thing that they did leave up. So now we know where the Eiffel Tower actually came from. But it just keeps getting better. Then you have St. Louis Fair, 1904. Now, what's interesting about this fair is it made the movies. It made Hollywood, and they made a movie called Meet Me in St. Louis. I highly suggest everybody just look this movie up. They have several clips in there that are giving some hints of what could possibly have happened back then. There is a little girl basically stating how there was some kind of flood and all these bodies showed up and it was terrible. And then there's also a part of this movie where they talk about the same little girl is talking about how she hopes that they don't tear it down. Well, what we find out is that after it's in a clause that every fair that happened, every fair, it has to be destroyed. Has to be. And so in the movie, they even state, I hope it doesn't get tore down. Now, we love how the movies are always giving us some hints, right? Talk about last week, we talked about the Cabbage Patch Kids. Well, this is where the baby incubators were. So they would tell the people that would come and visit these world fairs that these incubators would help these premature babies grow, and that these incubators are mainly made for premature babies. But they probably were these Cabbage Patch Kids that they were growing in a lab somewhere. It's fascinating stuff. But one last thing I want to mention, the hot air balloon rides. We have that today, right? Hot air balloons. But the hot air balloons were massive back then. Massive. And there is articles that are stating there was a castle in the sky. So it's basically an air balloon, like a hot air balloon, like gigantic one. And there is a mansion that hangs underneath it. And then there's elevators that go into this place. It is pictures in a book that this gentleman found, and I wish I could get my hands on this book, but it is fascinating things which make us think that we were probably doing a lot of the things we do today. We just didn't know about it.
You know, it's like makes you think like I think about this all the time. I like this thought pops into my head every time I go into an old grand building. I'm like, are we actually evolving as people? I'm not sure because like we are not doing this. Like everything around us is drab. It has no sense of place anymore. We don't do anything that like evokes emotion. You go to your old city hall was like this grand, beautiful building. Your new city hall is a glass building with no soul, empty walls, hollow, like gross. But it's like, why? What is the reason? You know, it's like the hardest part that I think everyone can agree about is you're going to take 2 years to build these grand exhibits. You're only going to let people see them for 6 months. And then you're going to force people to tear them down or like face fines, right? Or they're going to burn down. So it's like, it's crazy. If they have the money to put these buildings up, why not just leave them? Like, when was the last time that you went to? It's like for the Biltmore House, for example. They have had the King Tut exhibit there. The King Tut exhibit will stay for an entire year because that's what they do. And this is in the modern day age when it's easy to move things around.
That is a good point. That is a good point.
So, what was the play, you think?
I think that's when they chose to re-educate us. I think that's when they saw everybody very weak because of all the disasters that happened. They used these world fairs to re-educate people, and they put every bit of resource that they could on their side to make these world fairs look amazing. I mean, in that movie, Meet Me in St. Louis, the female character is like, can you believe it? It's in our own city. We don't have to leave. We don't have to go stay in a hotel. It's in our own city. I mean, they always tell us in movies. So to me, it's just clear as day that it was meant to just re-educate us. Like I was saying before in the last episode or our last, episode where they introduced pornography. I mean, they had women just walking around just topless naturally. And you had kids and families just like a zoo. Like they're like a zoo. They're an animal standing there topless. Is what I mean, and I'm sure they made it look like human art, which we know what human art is these days. But it's just fascinating how they use these exhibits, temporary exhibits, when we know damn well these buildings have been there for centuries. And I almost think, Carlyle, that these buildings were built when Jesus was here and that this is why they wanted to hide it so much. But that's just my opinion. But I
So
just
you
think it's,
think so you
but
think that Jesus has already been here and then we are in Satan's little season.
I'm starting to wonder that now. I am.
I've started like kind of like dipping my toe into that and it makes sense because like I tell my husband this all the time. I'm like, why does everything seem like it used to be so nice and now everything is like abandoned and run down and
Yeah.
like like trashy and like shopping malls and like old towns that you could tell used to have so much life. I'm like, if I could go back into time, I want to go back into this
Yeah.
small window from like 1850 to like 1910 or maybe like 1920 to like see what actually was going on. Because then it's like right after all of this stuff, right after these right after these world fairs, and they showed all these grand architecture, and they brought the people in to see what was there, and like, look what we can build, and look what the future can be, and like, look how strong and powerful of leaders we are, like we dominate all these people, because they were like collecting, like Europe, especially England, was like collecting all of these pieces as they were conquering and becoming like spreading their empire. So it's like they had mummy exhibits with like 50 prominent mummies. And it's like to show that it's like, look, we are the superior people and these are the lesser people. And it's really it was definitely the first government psyop. And then I
Uh-huh.
think they had to get rid of the buildings because people would have started questioning, why can't we still build buildings like this? They couldn't keep the buildings because people would question, well, I don't understand. Why can't all our buildings look like this?
Oh, I did see where they would say that they had to the world fairs, they had to demolish them from the Chicago company that they would bring in, with like 600 plus men, and they would go and demolish all the world fairs.
Another thing to look at is the guys who finance the World Fair. Many of the
Yeah.
fair planners were Freemasons. They were tied to esoteric orders. Like all of the gardens, the buildings have perfect symmetry, cosmic layouts, beautiful domes, ritual architecture. The fairs were like modern temples, almost like a mass initiation into like the new industrial age. Like they showed this utopia, clean, bright, orderly, to signal like who's in control. Basically, the first global psyop. We built this world. We're a dominant society. They're like, look what we can build. Let's display global progress, make it beautiful and inspiring, and show global cultures. But what they really were doing was like, let's convince people we built these and hide the civilization before us. Let's decide what history survives and erase what doesn't fit the narrative. And
Yeah.
then use to distract people from questioning the truth.
Yeah.
And then you rewrite who built what, claim it all from the empire. So it's like such a genius plan. Like these
It really
World's
is.
fairs were to reprogram and rewrite history
Completely. And then say, "Oh, well, we need to tear it down because the people that own this land are gonna have to pay taxes."
because they can't replicate the buildings, so they have to get rid of them.
They have to. I mean, you and I would totally be questioned, like, "Well, wait a minute, why can't I go in this building that I've been going?" It was amazing to me is how they hid these buildings from people. So in that movie, Meet Me in St. Louis, like, how is she saying, like, "This is in our own towns," which made me think, were people living in
For
that
the
town?
psyop, that's part of the
True.
psyop.
That's true. That's true. But then it
The
does make you
buildings were
wonder
already there. The movie was to convince you that people didn't think the
that it
buildings were
wasn't.
already there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because there's just no way.
But I definitely and you definitely would have been put into an insane asylum back then.
100,000.
Maybe we don't need to travel back then.
We don't need to we don't need to go in a time machine and go back. We probably would be in trouble. But that makes me
Yeah,
wonder
they
sometimes, why we're here doing what we're doing and why we question everything. Like your dad was saying, asking you, like, why do you question everything? We can't help it. We can't help it. Like our minds just keep going past the veil. It reminds me of that movie, The Wizard of Oz. We're like, there's a little man behind the veil. You and I know there's a little man behind the veil. So every time we're like, where's the little man? Where is he? What's he been like trying to show us? But
And people are like, the other thing is like, you think people really have time to like think about how they're gonna like pull one over on you all the time? And I'm like, a group of very wealthy people got together and wanted to start their own country, and they had to figure out the best way to do it to make them look like the heroes. That is the kind of the conclusion that I'm coming to. You know, it's like maybe this was the first like global rebrand. The new world, America was fairly new. England was like expanding its empire into different places, I believe, during that time. So it really was like a show of power. And I find it really interesting. And I think that it ties in today, in today's society, how it's like we think that we're like evolving with technology, but like we're really not. We're
Yeah,
really
we're going
not.
backwards. Even the SUV, Tesla's SUV, I saw drawings of that way back in the 1800s. I mean, is Elon stealing these ideas like we think everybody is and putting them out now? Becoming wealthy off of these ideas when they're really not their ideas. They just knew these were ideas before.
I
That's
know.
kind of
And why did we need to look into what we need to look into why Elon Musk chose the name Tesla? Like what was his inspiration from Nikola Tesla? And
he only paid $60,000 for the name Tesla. I did find that out a long time ago.
well, that's
So there was
crazy.
a
So
reason why he was looking for the name Tesla, like you're saying.
yeah, so maybe next week we'll look into Tesla, the company, Nicholas Tesla, and I really want to dive into Egypt and how these wealthy elites had their hand all in Egyptology. They were like out there looking for this ancient tech. They were looking for ancient tech, lost knowledge, like all these mummies. So I think that we're getting into something, and I like
Yeah,
it.
especially with Elon and Memphis, Texas right now. He's saying Memphis could possibly be Egypt. And so there's a lot to uncover with that. So I think that would be a great episode.
Yeah, that's what we'll talk about next week. So, see y'all next week. And remember, if it sounds too wild to be true, bless your heart for asking.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.